Hey, hello everybody. Hi, real progressives. This is Rocco Million. Just got done with a little bit of manual labor outside, and I was thinking about my debate last night with Chris Lewis, and kept thinking that the whole thing was pretty much structured wrong, and we should have, it should have been structured about how we could have worked together to accomplish our common goals, and so I want to address that, and I want to talk about personal responsibility versus systemic abuses that we face in our society today and every day. So first, Chris was saying, we don't focus on inequality. We're not focusing on the corruption of our government. MMTers don't look at structural inequality. He was talking about the Constitution being against black people originally. And I told him that, MMT does exactly that. It exposes our government con games. It exposes the ruling class con games with simple logic and scientific fact. That's exactly what it does. And, we, the majority, have all the power collectively. We forced our government to change the Constitution to include all Americans, to include, women, black, regardless. We are all equal in the eyes of the law now. And, but we're all subject to government. So he also said, well, we think MMTers say that we're all about having the government do everything for us. And so the whole thing about this is, no, I think everybody should be personally responsible. Absolutely. Take as much personal responsibility as you can. That's just common sense. But you can't ignore the systemic factors, the systemic abuses that are designed to, keep us down. We can't get away from government. Government forced us to stop living off the land and start working for the general welfare of society. It did that by imposing tax on the private sector. That creates unemployment instantaneously. People in the private sector are willing then to sell their goods and services for dollars. And that's how government provisions society with, paid employment. And so, it's up to us as a people, no matter what leadership, what system we have. We could have a Marxist economy today. It's the same problem. If we need participation to ensure that our leadership, our government works for the public purpose. Okay, if the people don't participate, if the people don't care, and they let our leadership work against the public purpose for their own private purposes, then we're going to get fascism regardless of the system in place. So, when Chris says we need to kill capitalism and, have this other system in place, he's not understanding our operational reality. It'll still be the same. There's nothing wrong with our system. We're guaranteed government for, of, and by the people. That's a great system. We have to collectively force the issue, though. Even if even tribes of Indians and stuff, they still had leadership. They still had power structures. So that's in essence a government. All right. So, trying to say that, we can do something, outside of the government is it's foolish. The government inflicts systemic unemployment, systemic poverty. Millions of people suffer and die needlessly every day for no other reason than a lack of cash. To ignore that is not only wrong, it's counterproductive. So absolutely, let's all, have personal responsibility. Let's all have community gardens. Let's, try to shop wiser, eat wiser, do everything we got to do at the personal level. But we also got to recognize at the systemic level, the big picture, that there's only two positions you can take. Either you allow our socially owned government to keep a buffer stock of unemployed for capital to wage war on labor with, or you advocate our government keep a buffer of full employment to maximize our productive capacity and raise everybody's standard of living without raising taxes, without making cuts. There's no other way about this. Okay, when you don't understand the operational reality of our economy, you end up being counterproductive. Okay, you can have the best intentions. Take for instance these end defenders. They think that the banking cartel is our big problem. They think the Federal Reserve is private and it's our big problem. Okay, and then at the same time, because they don't understand our operational reality, they oppose federal deficit spending. And what does that do? Without federal spending, we only have private credit left to balance the economy. So you're empowering the Fed and private credit, the people that you were originally against to begin with. That's why this stuff is so important. There is no revolution without MMT. If you don't know how to pay for your progressive goals, then you're going to accept pointless austerity that kills more than guns and drugs combined. Okay, the fact is we don't need to kill capitalism. We don't need to tax the rich. We don't need to end the Fed. We don't need to cut defense for government to do its job today, satisfying the general welfare of society. That means balancing the economy with a federally guaranteed living wage job for every single person who wants one. He says we don't focus on structural inequality. What is the federal job guarantee? How does that not focus on structural inequality? That cures structural inequality. We wouldn't be the precarious class anymore. This fight, real quick, we'll go through all the ways that the federal job guarantee is revolutionary. First of all, this is federally funded, locally administered. So, this restores democracy, okay? It puts the power back in the hands of the people, all right? The first way it does that is in the private sector. It would make the minimum wage the federal living wage without even a mandate to the private sector. Either the private sector beats the federal living wage or they can't attract the labor workforce away from the federal job guarantee. So it would revolutionize the private sector. They would have to redo their business model to truly value labor, or they wouldn't be able to attract the labor workforce away from the federal job guarantee. It's revolutionary. This would also, like I said, restore democracy, stop gerrymandering, stop racial profiling, stop police terror. It would do all of this. It would empower LGBT, empower women. It would do all of these things with extreme mobility, okay? Because if a local government didn't treat their people right, if they let their police racially profile and terrorize the people, if a city neglected its infrastructure to the point where the water was poisoning people, people could simply get up and go to a city that does value their people. They could do that now, knowing they have a federally guaranteed living wage job, guaranteed waiting for them wherever they go. And what that does to the substandard city, they lose their tax base and their ability to operate. And so this would force these local governments to have to work for their people, to keep their people happy, or else they lose their tax base and their ability to operate. It's synonymous with direct democracy. Okay, the federal job guarantee gives more collective bargaining power to labor than any union could ever dream of. Okay, this is how you give the power back to labor. It even stops for-profit imperialism by ending the military's employer of last resort status. Okay, it would destroy the military's ability to recruit poor people all over the place. And no longer would we be the precarious. People wouldn't have to go to the military for a stable career opportunity. They would be able to stay home with a federally guaranteed living wage job, rebuilding their own community in green, sustainable ways. Okay, without people to fight their for-profit wars, our military would be forced to abandon its goals of empire. It would be forced to truly defend our nation's sovereignty, truly defend our people's rights against all enemies, foreign or domestic, from rogue nations to our domestic capitalist class. All right, these are just a few of the ways that the federal job guarantee is revolutionary. Okay, did anybody hear anything that Chris had to say that was going to revolutionize society? Because ignoring the problem of systemic unemployment is not revolutionary. Ignoring systemic poverty is not revolutionary. Okay, pumping your fist in the air and saying kill capitalism while millions die is not revolutionary. It's just not. He wants the same things as us. he can't get out of his own way. 100 times I told him our government is corrupt. It always been, and we've always had a ruling class. Okay, the ruling class didn't want to end slavery. The ruling class didn't want the Civil Rights Act. The ruling class, Nixon didn't want the EPA. The ruling class didn't want the full employment policies of the New Deal. Okay, but yet people power took us from the Great Depression to the #1 superpower in the world. People power did it, forcing our government to deficit spend, to invest in its society and its productive capacity. And we can do that again. Created a great society. It balanced the economy. The majority of spending went to the bottom. You can get out of high school and get a great career and support a family with one job. Okay, and we had a good social safety net. We had good education. We produced the most brilliant minds in the world, to engineers, scientists, you name it. Okay, when we slack off on that, other countries, they move ahead. I seen a thing the other day. We're 45th in the nation in terms of, we're way down on the map when it comes to democracy and the happiness index. America doesn't even rank in the top 10 on these. I mean, that's an embarrassment. We completely let our capitalist class, run our government. We completely let our government work for the capitalist class at everybody else's expense. Okay. And this when we start to talk about solutions like a federal job guarantee, people will say, well, what about the private sector? Won't that hurt their profits? Won't that hurt their business? The reason they have a business is so that we can have a society. A socially owned government is supposed to work for the public purpose and let the individuals make what they can from the balanced economy that ensues. Our socially owned government's never supposed to work for the private profits of the 1% or of the individual and force society to make do with the scraps. That's fascism. Why we never need to put profit ahead of the general welfare. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of government's mandate. Article 1, Section 8. It mandates government mint and tax for the general welfare of society and the common defense thereof. So that's the whole thing. It doesn't say government, its job is to mint and tax for the private profits of the 1%. No, it doesn't. And so it's up to us to force the issue. All right. The main concern for our government is society, never profit. All right. And so, and just by that metric alone, MMT exposes, our ruling class, it exposes our fascist government because both parties have kept a buffer stock of unemployment from the 70s, to wage war on labor with. This is how they keep our wages down. Bosses don't have to give a raise now because they got millions of people outside unemployed, so desperate they'll do your job cheaper than you. It puts downward pressure on all labor wages and working conditions. This is why our wages have been stagnant since the 70s, while productivity, corporate profits, and cost of living are all at record highs. Okay, do you know what that means? That means the 99% has lost a big a lion's share of its purchasing power. Okay, deflation. All right, that's what that means. We have way more supply than demand to buy it. Our economy is all out of whack. We starve 99%. Force us all into private credit just to consume production and survive. This is the neoliberal way. Privatize the public space and deregulate everything. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. And it's easy to see when you understand the reality of how our economy works from the macro level. Okay, they can't, the only reason that we accept this collectively is because we believe the right-wing lies fed to us by the ruling class. Okay, we believe that, the national debt is somehow a burden on future generations. So we'll accept pointless austerity today. so that we don't burden future generations. We believe that we have to tax the rich for government to do its job and spend on society. So we will, accept pointless austerity that kills just like bullets until government taxes the rich. It's the same thing over and over again. We will, if we think we got to end the Fed or end capitalism, then we will accept pointless austerity until we end the Fed or end capitalism. That's unnecessary. You don't need to add any fight into this. We need to spend at the bottom now. Government needs to do its job. Spending at the bottom, period, to balance the economy with a federally guaranteed living wage job for everyone who wants one. Maximize our productive capacity. We can meet everybody's base needs in the public sector. Okay, and who cares about capitalism? All right. No, that doesn't mean we do everything for everyone. That means that the safety net is there. All right. If you lose your job in the private sector and all else fails, you at least can fall back on a public sector job at a living wage. All right. So your base needs will be met. Now, if you hone your skills and you get better, you can always go on to the public sector and make as much as your heart content. All right. We're not saying that anybody has to be equal. We're not saying that people can't have ambition. We're saying that there needs to be a social safety net, because it's in nobody's interest to have people poor and starving, intentionally systemic poor and starving people at the bottom. Okay. That's the exact opposite of how you get civil society. That's how you get a dog eat dog world. And people, hurt each other, and violence and dysfunction and disease and black markets. And, think about it. Like I said, our wages have been stagnant since the 70s. Well, corporate profits, productivity, and cost of living are at record highs. That's because our government keeps a buffer of unemployment. Okay, so that means that now both parents have to work a job, and nobody's home with the kids. So the kids are vulnerable to addiction and drugs and gangs and violence. Nobody's teaching them the proper way to live. Okay, this is called the gig economy, the Uberization of economy, of our economy. This is the neoliberal era, a very big difference from the New Deal era, where, one income can support an income. You can find a career job straight out of high school. Okay, where the majority of federal spending went to the bottom 90%. Right now, it's the exact opposite. 100% of it goes to the top 1%. And not only that, we've actually lost market share. We're in private debt to our eyeballs. Okay, so we lost market share. Our purchasing power has been greatly diminished because of this war, this class war, that we, the people, collectively allow our government to engage us with. All right. And ignoring that isn't revolutionary. It's not going to help. And any system you have is going to take participation to ensure the public purpose. It's that simple. And you'll never, that's called the struggle. That never goes away. No matter what, there will always be private forces looking to consolidate power for their own private purposes at society's expense, at the public purpose expense. It's up to the public to stay engaged, to participate. The majority has all the power, regardless. If we stay home tomorrow, there is no society for the ruling class to rule. They know that. So the reality is, if we all stayed home tomorrow, America would grind to a halt. But the reality is the ruling class would never let it get far. Okay, because they know at that point we got them by the balls. We can demand anything. They would, just like they gave in to the full employment policies of the New Deal, with when labor rose up and was occupying factories, that probably wasn't even 20% of the country, that was rising up. But the ruling class still met their demands. The ruling class still gave us the full employment policies of the New Deal and balanced the economy for 40 years. Okay, so don't let anybody tell you we're powerless. Our power comes in our pride. I mean, our weakness is our pride. We think we know it all. Okay. And, but the fact of the matter is that being a defeatist is not helping us. We, the people, have all the power. Okay. Ignoring the issue is not helping us. Learn, actually do the work, put some hours in, look up Dr. Stephanie Kelton, look up Bill Mitchell, follow Real Progressives, follow Deficit Owls, the Modern Money Network. Go to Joe Firestone's website, read it. There's a wealth of information. Okay, go to Billy Blog, read it. There's a wealth of information. Go check out Mike Norman. He's a Republican. Who cares? He's actually to the left of Bernie. All right, because that's how revolutionary MMT actually is. That's a testament to the revolutionary power of MMT. It unites all sides for the public purpose, first and foremost. And it does that with simple fact and scientific fact and simple logic. Article 1, Section 8, don't lie. The preamble, don't lie. Our government, we are guaranteed a socially owned government for the public purpose, for the general welfare. I don't care if you're Republican, Marxist, whatever. Unless you're Chris, you can't deny that. Unless you're completely detached from reality, you can't deny that. So again, these people, they think that we want government to do everything for us. First of all, that's a right-wing argument, if you noticed. Again, remember I said the reason we allow our government to work against us is because we believe the right-wing lies. There you go. That's a right-wing lie that they believe. We want the government to do everything for us. We should be more self-sufficient. No, we don't. We want the government to satisfy its mandate. Okay, that's only half the thing. All right. A federally guaranteed living wage job is not free stuff. All right. If they make unemployment with taxation. So it's government's responsibility to maintain full employment for that same general welfare. If the government is paying people for stuff, that's how government provisions society. It's how it's always happened. Okay, there's nothing radical about this. So do not let these people bog you down. Make sure you interject this truth everywhere it's needed, because these are the same arguments that they're going to keep using over and over again. Oh, they think that they're entitled to our money. No, your money don't pay for nothing at the federal level. Try again. When Congress passes a bill for something, that something is fully funded, period. All right, government checks don't bounce. All federal spending is brand new dollars created by congressional decree, a law from thin air. All right, and federal taxation is destroyed upon receipt. So, that's it. It's a social construct. It's a means of production to move real resources from the private sector to the public sector for the public purpose. That's the only, this is how government provisions itself. And before it used slavery. And now we're more civilized and we use debt instruments. So like I was telling Chris again, this is not opinion. This is scientific fact. Sectoral balances do not lie. When the government spends, when the government deficit spends into the non-government, that is our surplus in the non-government. Okay, when the government spends dollars into existence, those dollars are the liability of government. They're promising to accept those dollars back to extinguish our tax obligations. So on the government side of the ledger, of the government side of the spreadsheet, it's recorded as a deficit. And then they are our asset on the non-government side because they extinguish our tax credits. So they're recorded as an asset. And, that's accounting identity. There's no opinion with that. And now when you add both sides of the spreadsheet up, the government's deficit will say if the government deficit's 10, then the government on its side is minus 10. And then the non-government, us and the non-government would be plus 10. That's accounting identity to the penny every time. If you add them up, negative 10 plus 10 always nets to 0. So, that's scientific fact. There's no getting away from this stuff. All right. Again, we use simple logic to destroy trickle-down theory as well. All right. Trickle-down leaves our bottom income distribution the first to be fired. in an economic downturn, the last to be hired in an economic uptick. That leaves the bottom always in pain, always in a recession, always in a depression. And that drags everybody's standard of living down. That's not providing for the general welfare of millions and millions of people. By its constitutional mandate to the general welfare is to balance the economy. The only way you could balance a consumer-driven capitalist economy is by spending at the bottom. And the only way you do is balance the economy in a way where every single person can derive good benefit is to spend at the bottom with a federally guaranteed living wage job for every single person who wants one. All right. Then they have money. They have immediate needs. Demand will naturally travel up. When you give people at the bottom money, they need the supply of the people at the top. They need the services of the skilled and educated above them. So that's how it works. Trickle down just doesn't work. And that's why MMT is the revolutionary vehicle we've all been waiting for, because it lays these facts bare. Okay, so we already covered now the national debt is not a burden. We don't need to accept that right-wing lie. When they tell us, oh, well, what about the burden of the national debt on future generations? So we got to raise the retirement age on Social Security, or we got to do this or do that. We now know that's bullshit. The government's debt is our asset in the non-government. The national debt is just a record of all dollars in existence. If our national debt was zero, we would have $0 in existence. That would be the only way that our national debt could be a burden on a monetarily sovereign government like ours. Okay, and then again, we talked about how trickle down is a lie with simple fact, and the only way to balance a capitalist consumer-driven economy is spending at the bottom, and the only way to do it where every single person can derive good benefit is with a federally guaranteed living wage job for everyone who wants one. Okay, so and we don't need to tax the rich to do it. Okay, we just passed huge defense bills. We just passed hurricane relief. All right, and we didn't raise taxes on anybody. And as a matter of fact, we lowered taxes. All right, think back since 2008. We spent trillions of dollars bailing out the bank. We haven't really raised taxes since then. So there's empirical evidence for everything I'm saying. All right, taxes are not used to fund federal spending. All right, government spending bills are. Okay, that's it. That's how we fund anything, with a congressional decree, a law. And so when people say that we need to tax the rich so that government can, spend on society and do its job, we know, no, that's bullshit. We never need to tax the rich. Article 1, Section 8 mandates that government never need to find money, because it mandates government mint and tax for the public purpose, for the general welfare of society. So there's no arguing with these facts. Okay. And, when people want to say that it doesn't, address structural inequality, well, every MMTer I know, is arguing to put demand at the bottom, is arguing for a federally guaranteed living wage job program. That kills the existing capitalist power structures in place today. Again, I already went through all the different ways it does. It gives the labor back to, it gives the leverage back to labor. When you have more people than jobs available, we have to outbid each other for those jobs. That's bad. We end up working for starvation wages. Okay, that's what happens right now when government, keeps a buffer of unemployment. But when government keeps a buffer of full employment and we have more jobs than people available, then business has to compete with each other to get the available labor. This is when they'll end up paying to train students straight out of high school. They'll give you good working conditions, good salaries. You'll be able to support a family straight out of high school. The leverage is back with labor. It destroys the existing power structures, unlike the neoliberal UBI, which is another right-wing lie to try and make us spin our wheels, try and make us be counterproductive. Okay, that really doesn't destroy the capitalist power structures. That really does feed capitalism. and it's inflationary. It doesn't offer a ladder out of poverty. It doesn't kill the existing power structures of capitalism. And it's inflationary. Plus, they want to use it to privatize the public space with a small little lump sum payment, and because it's inflationary, that payment will have less purchasing power. Right? We'll be worse off than we were before. The only way, wage, not a UBI, but a basic wage can be added to the federal job guarantee. So people that don't want to work, they can simply have a basic wage, 2/3 of the living. But the fact of the matter is most people will want to work. Most people want to be a part of their society. Most people want to feel, like they produced something, they made something. And today I was out, doing manual labor, digging a pit and doing some painting. It feels good. I got the sweat. I come home, I feel good. I did something. Most people, that's what they want. And people don't want welfare. They don't want HUD. There was a lady on my page today. She was talking about, oh, well, I'm not a Republican, first of all, and I agree with Ben Carson, the Secretary of HUD, tripling the rent of the poorest Americans, because those people need to get motivated to get off HUD. And I said, oh, my God, you're talking from a place of privilege and you're talking from a place of ignorance. I said, if you talk as if we have to motivate the poor like it's their choice to be poor. You completely ignore the fact that our government keeps a buffer of 5% unemployment. We target unemployment. We create systemic poverty. So if every single person had the best job skills, period, they had all the motivation in the world, every single person, we would still have systemic poverty throughout our communities, because that's the way our government wants it. They keep that buffer for capital to wage war on labor with. So are we starting to understand this is the way it is? Why would anyone in office listen to me? They will not listen to you any more than others. MMT will not change the fact that our government works primarily as junior partners for the first of all, let me just say, you do realize there was a ruling class in place when we had slavery. There was a ruling class in place when we got the New Deal. When they put the EPA in, there was a ruling class in place. You realize all that, right? Okay, so the fact is the ruling class never, ever once has just given us justice out of the kindness of their heart. All right, we've always had to collectively demand it. All right, we are guaranteed government for, of, and by the people. That's socially owned government. Our socially owned government working for the private purpose at society's expense, they're going to give us fascism every time, regardless of any system you have. So how do we do it? The way that the ruling class is maintaining their illusion of power is with these right-wing neoliberal lies about money that were designed to keep us divided, that were designed to keep us thinking that government is impotent. They were designed to keep us thinking that we are powerless to change anything. Once you learn MMT, it's revolutionary because all those lies are exposed. They're easily defeated with simple logic and scientific fact. It unites all sides. You get Republicans, Marxists, all sides. Very little people will deny simple logic and scientific fact. You do get a few, but, very few. Most people, when you tell them 2 + 2 = 4, they understand that, So even if they were brainwashed to think that 2 + 2 = 3 their whole life, when you explain to them how addition works, they understand 2 + 2 = 4. So that's the whole thing, Hamo. We have to teach this. There's no other way. If people don't understand how our economy works, then they will accept our government not working for the private profits at a 1% at our expense. We accept it because we think we're powerless to change it. We accept it because we think government needs to tax the rich to do its job. We accept it because we think we need to kill capitalism for government to do its job. We think we have to end the Fed for government to do its job. All right, this is ridiculous. The government doesn't need, we can force our government to do anything tomorrow. If the majority stays home, there is no society. On that day, it doesn't matter who is in office. The deep state, it doesn't matter. There's not enough money in the world to buy our government's influence then. Okay? The ruling class isn't stupid either. They understand that, when this happened with FDR and the New Deal, he went in and talked to his ruling class compatriots. And he told them, look, either you give up a little bit of power now and a little bit of hope now, and the revolution that is sure to follow. They understand. So, and we see this is the empirical evidence is all around us. All right. You now see Bernie advocating a federal job guarantee. You see right-wing neoliberals like Cory Booker advocating a federal job guarantee pilot program. I mean, it might not be what we want, but at least it's in, the mainstream. People, it's a signal that the politicians, they're looking for what the people support, right? They want to get elected. They want that policy that tells the people they represent the bottom income distribution first and foremost, regardless of whatever you think about Cory Booker or Bernie Sanders. If they truly represent a federally guaranteed living wage job with no added on pay for taxes, then they represent the bottom income distribution regardless. And we should always support that, period. If we can't support good ideas because we don't like the people or we don't trust the people proposing them, then the ruling class already won. All right, Hamo, don't be a tool for the ruling class, Hamo. Don't be the defeatist in the room. All right, this is always the case. We always got to force our leadership to do what's right. And if you don't understand the reality, you're not gonna know how to overcome the ruling class con games. It's that simple. There is no other way. That's why there is no movement. There is no progressive movement without MMT. All right, we've seen that with Bernie again. Sure, his campaign reflected economic reality, and it was great. We all loved it. But because he never explained the operational reality that taxes do not fund federal spending and they can't fund federal spending, it's impossible. Because he never explained that, he got the moniker of Crazy Bernie, who couldn't even do math. He only taxed 19 trillion while spending 30-some trillion. Where's that money going to come from? Hillary Clinton famously used that right-wing argument in a debate. It's that old argument, buying everybody a pony. Where's that money going to come from? It's pie in the sky, offering everybody free stuff. These are all right-wing lies. And this is how they get the collective to allow our government to work against us. This is why MMT is the revolution. It's just information. MMT isn't even a thing. MMT is just knowledge. It's information, reality. We can use it as a revolutionary tool to unite, but we have to do it. That's the whole point. So let's see. No. Now here we go. Another one. Christopher Negro. What Hamo just said, you are arguing to keep the capitalist class intact and respecting their right to acquire vast amounts of wealth while trying to force them to accept a social safety net, which is a bigger share of the crumbs. Okay, listen to me, Chris. All right, the federal job guarantee destroys the existing capitalist power structures. We're saying meet everybody's base needs in the public sector for free. Okay, because the government never needs profit. It never even needs revenue. The government's job, it's mandated by the Constitution to provide for the general welfare. So if the government's paying doctors to give health care, we don't need to charge the end user. If the doctor's paying teachers to give education, we don't need to charge the end user, because the public good in itself is already socially valuable. That is our productive capacity. Okay, the money part of the equation doesn't matter. That's always infinite for the federal government. All that matters is we have enough real resources to buy with that money. So that means government must always invest and strengthen our productive capacity. That means top-notch health care, because sick, miserable people can't produce our needs for tomorrow. Top-notch education, because stupid people can't produce our needs of tomorrow. This goes on and on and on. So we're not saying leave the capitalist class alone. We're saying you're saying we're not talking about redirecting wealth. We're allowing them to acquire vast amounts of wealth. No, we're saying spend at the bottom. All right, that changes everything. If the majority of federal spending is going to the bottom, like it did during the New Deal era, and everybody has a living wage job at their disposal. They can live good. They have all their needs met. Okay, luxury items could be in the private for-profit markets. What do you care about capitalism at that point? All your needs are met. You have a living wage job. You have a house. You have food, shelter. Okay, if you want to make more in the private sector, you can go and do that. Okay, but we don't need to kill the private sector to do any of this. We don't need to kill capitalism to do any of this. The way you stop inequality is stop giving all the money to the top. You don't need to redistribute wealth. You just don't distribute it bad to begin with. And it's when you give demand to the bottom, they buy the products of the top. And so, the top will also like this. They're not going to be completely against the idea, because they know they can't stay in business without consumers to buy their production. And so, yeah, those dollars will still end up in the hands of the 1%. They will still end up with the money. But the thing is, with the federal job guarantee, people's attitudes will be changing about government's usefulness and government's efficiency in creating direct jobs and meeting our needs, our human needs. People will start to trust government more and more and more. And then when problems do arise in private section production or in the private section, any reason, then the majority, more people, the public, would be more comfortable with seizing the physical means of production, or at least the commanding heights like steel production and things like that. So, this is how we transition to a post-capitalist economy. All right. Now, ignoring the problem and letting millions of people die, that's doing the job of the ruling class. There's only two options you could have. Either you accept our government keeping a buffer of unemployment for capital to wage war on labor, or you advocate our government keep a buffer of full employment to empower labor against the predatory nature of capitalism. There's no other way you can have it. Nobody gets away from government. Government is the supreme authority. They own the private sector with their ability to impose tax and be the monopoly issuer of the only tax credit. This is how they forced us to stop living off the land and start working for the general welfare of society. Per the Constitution, government needed things like infrastructure, military, legal systems, sanitation systems. It needed real resources like that to satisfy its constitutional mandate. It never needed money, because all money is made brand new dollars from congressional decree, a law. So it uses taxation. It imposes tax on the private sector. And that creates unemployment. People that are willing to sell their goods and services for dollars. That's how government provisions society with paid employment. It's just a social construct, a means of production. It's the real means of production, Chris. Okay? It isn't the capitalist class don't own shit. How our government taxes and spends this determines everything. Determines how we utilize, distribute, and organize the real resources of our whole nation for the public purpose. Okay, nobody even owns property in America. We all rent. We all pay tax. Okay, so, the real means of production is government. How government spends determines everything. It determines how we distribute our resources. It determines how we grow our resources, how we use them. Anything you want to say. And there's no getting away from that. Government is creating systemic unemployment, systemic poverty. Okay? There's no way you can get away with that. If you're living in America, we have to deal with that. We have to force our government to give us, to satisfy its constitutional mandate. to maintain full employment. Just think about it, Chris. Okay, if the government's mandated for the general welfare, how is it helping society for government to intentionally target unemployment, intentionally keep millions of people unemployed and millions of people poor? All right, that's MMT clearly showing that our government is working for the private profits of the 1% at society's expense. Now, it's up to us to stop them from doing that, okay, like we did every time in the past. Like I said, we did this, the New Deal. The ruling class didn't want the New Deal. We went through a Great Depression, and then the people rose up and they forced the ruling class to give us the full employment policies of the New Deal. We went from the Great Depression to the world #1 superpower by forcing our government to deficit spend, to invest in itself. All right. And we can do that again without the racism and discrimination. All right. In a modern context. So, that's it. And I do deny that. And I don't think well, what do you deny? You deny. There's nothing to deny here. Again, this is actual fact. You can deny the operational reality of gravity, but if you step off of a roof, you're going to fall and die. So, you can deny our reality, MMT, but it's still the fact when government spends dollars into existence, those dollars are government's debt, and it's our asset in the non-government. That's just a scientific fact. All right. It's a fact that government creates unemployment with taxation, a scientific fact. Okay. If I think about a situation where you need your work done on your house. So you tell your kids, you impose tax on your kids, and you tell them, they have to come up with these Rocco coupons, and you're going to tell them what work you need done. You're going to tell them how many Rocco coupons you will pay for each job. Okay. Now at the end of the week, you tax your Rocco coupons back, not to spend. You can always make Rocco coupons. You tax your Rocco coupons back to keep the kids needing more Rocco coupons. So they got to keep on doing more work. It's a means of production. It's just a social construct to provision society. That's it. This isn't. How can you deny scientific fact? Government is the supreme authority. If you don't do what government says, you go to jail. If you don't pay government's tax, you go to jail. If you own land, you pay tax. You don't own land. You rent land. You pay tax. And if you don't pay the tax, you go to jail. So that means you're going to be willing to sell your goods and labor for dollars. You're going to be willing to be unemployed. And that's how government got people to work on our roads, to go to the military, to do all these different things in society. This isn't complex. It really is. I don't see how people can't understand this. Is that it? Anybody else got anything else? I went way longer than I wanted to. I didn't expect to go this long at all, but I guess it was good because we needed to get some of this stuff out. So I might as well just take the full hour too, and take another 10 minutes and just talk about a little bit more about the jobs guarantee. It's a democratic means of production, federally funded, locally administered. Okay, it restores democracy. If your town doesn't work for you, you can simply get up and leave. All right, so it makes local governments work for their people. It's a democratic means of production capable of increasing just about any production we need for the general welfare. So right now we keep a buffer stock of unemployment. This is how we control inflation. All right, we keep people unemployed and poor, destitute. And that is supposed to keep wage prices down. Okay, but it's not only inhumane to balance our economy on the backs of our most vulnerable, the unemployed, it's also completely unnecessary. A federal job guarantee is a far superior inflation anchor. for the simple fact that it is an economic stabilizer, and also it's a democratic means of production. So let's just say that there was problems in the private sector. A couple oil firms or oil producers are playing games trying to jack their prices up and get more profit. And they're messing up the supply that we need for the general welfare of society. All right, government can simply step in and seize those means of production. It has the labor to immediately do that and increase any production it needs. Because the main point is society. Again, our socially owned government is supposed to work for the public purpose and let the individual make do with the balanced economy that ensues. Never supposed to work for the private purpose of the individual. All right, so that's how it's an inflation anchor. If you can increase your supply, if inflation happens when demand outstrips supply, and we have untapped productive capacity with unemployment, then that means with a federal job guarantee, we can increase our supply and control inflation. All right, it's not complex, not rocket science. And after we get to our maximum productive capacity, we simply tax extra demand to control inflation, or we sell bonds to extract extra demand and control inflation. That's it. And the other way we increase our supply is with our trade deficit. We get the finite real resources of the whole world for our infinite dollars. Okay, so that allows us to increase our supply and control inflation. That's why we haven't had any inflation problems after trillions in corporate bailouts, trillions in endless wars, corporate welfare. We haven't been able to hit our inflation target in many years. All right, this is not conjecture. This is actual data. So don't let these people use these stupid arguments to derail simple logic, to derail our progress. We're making progress right now because we're being persistent. All right. Everybody, I wish that more people would start doing what I'm doing. Just get on Real Progressives, get on your own, just go live from your own page and start talking about this stuff. Start interjecting this logic. Every time you see people starting to talk shit, or say every time you feel like talking, get online and start saying, hey, I seen this person say, federal jobs are free stuff, and explain why that's not true. You know what I mean? Every time you see people saying we need to end capitalism, or helping people save lives today, if government saves lives today, that's somehow helping capitalism. Get on, go live and start talking about that, because that's the only way change is going to happen, from the bottom up. We're the only ones that are going to do this. We have to provide the rebuttal that's based in logic, that's based in fact. Okay, and when regular people hear us talk, don't get discouraged. When regular people hear us talk, they understand. They see who the people are speaking logic. Okay, so and we need the federal job guarantee is the revolutionary progressive keystone program from which other programs will flow. All right, this is the main thing that anybody can push for. This will transform our society at every single level. Yeah, take as much personal responsibility as you want. Everybody should take personal responsibility. Everybody should be self-reliant, have gardens if they can, do everything that they can. But we cannot ignore the systemic factors that are in our lives today. We cannot ignore the existing power structures in place today. We cannot ignore pointless suffering and death of millions of people because we want to be cool and say kill capitalism. Seriously, this is disgusting. If we meet everybody's base needs in the private sector, what do you care about capitalism? I mean, my God, how does that help capitalism? How is that propping up capitalism? That is prepping American attitudes to eventually overcome capitalism. All right. Right now, people think that the private markets control shit. People think the capitalists control things. Yesterday, what's his face? Chris was trying investors want the federal. Investors have nothing to do with this. The markets can't stop anything. It's the government that regulates the markets. It's not the markets that regulate government. Government needs to have a federal job guarantee, not because the markets want it, but because that's the only way to balance an economy in a way that everyone can derive good benefit. So that's the only way that it satisfies its constitutional mandate to the general welfare. Anything else than that is artificial scarcity that kills more than guns and drugs combined. This is not a little thing. This is the root of all of our problems. So, I mean, that's it. It's not science to assert something that is not now possible. The wealthy will not give us what we demand. All right, hey, Mo. Yeah, it's a scientific fact, okay? If the majority stay home tomorrow, then the ruling class will give us whatever we want. It's that simple. And for you to say anything else is just silliness. Okay, again, the ruling class didn't give us, they never gave us justice. We've always had to force the issue. The only reason we don't unite today is because we believe the lies of the right wing. And too many of us are defeatists like you, saying that we don't need to learn our operational reality because we're all powerless anyway. We're all powerless to do anything about it. So just forget about the operational reality that exposes the fascism of our government. Forget about it, because there's nothing we could do about it. I mean, do you hear yourself? It's bullshit. I mean, and it doesn't even matter. I don't fight because I know I'm going to win. I fight because I refuse to lie to myself. I refuse to leave my kids a future that's worse off without at least fucking trying. All right? It gets me this is horrible. People would rather sit here and argue with me about solutions that will save lives today. People are dying because they don't have cash, and government has an unlimited ability to make cash. We can force our government to do anything. That's always been the case, and it always will be the case. We can have a Marxist system in place today. It's still the case. We, the people, have to participate in our democracy. We, the people, have to ensure the public purpose is satisfied first and foremost, regardless. All right, so who cares? Forget capitalism, forget taxing, forget all the things that you think you know. Start teaching people the reality. Start teaching people that these right-wing lies are not reality. They're not scientific fact. We don't need to be afraid of the national debt. We don't need to tax the rich so government can spend. We don't need to cut defense. We don't need to end the Fed. We don't need to end capitalism, because that's the only way people will then unite in solidarity for the public purpose. Because when people think government's broke and impotent, they sure as hell won't rise up. When people think that, there's a finite pie of money, they're not going to fight for the bottom to get more, because they think to do so will make them get less. All right, there's no other way. That's why there is no revolution without operational reality, without MMT. That's it. We need to tax the wealthy to weaken the influence of the wealthy. Yeah, sure, great. But we need to separate the fights, because taxing the wealthy has nothing to do with spending to save lives today. So absolutely, I'm for, let's tax the rich. Who cares? It has nothing to do with our ability to do what's right today. Okay, and like I said, if the majority unite, then all the money in the world can't help the 1% influence our government. And that's just the reality. All the money in the world didn't help the ruling class stop the New Deal. The New Deal happened despite the ruling class, because of public pressure. Slavery stopped despite the ruling class, because of public pressure. The EPA happened despite Nixon, because of public pressure. So that's the whole thing. Your argument has no merit. You have to understand our economy to be able to overcome it. When you understand the operational reality, scientific facts, then you can overcome these right-wing lies very easily. When this is very easy. You cannot dance around the issues with MMT. We must remove the rich from power and kill. Yeah, listen to this dude. You can't dance around the issues with MMT. MMT doesn't dance around any issues. MMT exposes all the issues. Okay? How do you solve structural inequality, Amo? How do you solve structural inequality? After we kill capitalism, what's your plan? Okay? Because guess what? Even if we had a Marxist system in place today, okay, we still have to have the majority, the public, engaged, participating to ensure that our leadership will work for the public purpose. MMT is a blueprint for how we have a resource-based, balanced economy, shared economy. Okay, that's it. You know, these people that are talking about, resource-based economy, that's what MMT describes. I mean, I say it all the time. We have more than enough real resources to meet everybody's base needs. We have about 3 million homeless people, about 5 million foreclosed empty houses. Why do we have homelessness? Because our government is working for the private profits of the 1% over the general welfare of society. That's it. It doesn't have to do that. All right. Why do we have people dying of treatable, preventable illnesses? Only because they have a lack of cash. All right. We have more than enough resources to meet everybody's needs. And we have unemployed people to train more healthcare professionals. There's no reason. We went from the Great Depression to the #1 world superpower. We put a person on the moon, and you're telling me that we can't balance high school dropout. If I can understand this stuff, this is not complex. All right. The only way to balance an economy is by spending at the bottom. If you want your government to work for you, you got to work it. You can't drive a car if you're blind and then wreck and blame the car. All right, it's not the car's fault. You're blind. You can't blame our system if you don't understand how our system works and you don't participate in it. It's that simple. The federal job guarantee is direct democracy. All right, MMT is the revolution because it unites all sides, Republicans, Marxists, Dems, socialists. Because when Republicans find out that their taxes don't have to go up to raise everybody's standard of living, guess what? They love their kids too. They want their kids to live in a good society too. So they're less opposed to public purpose spending. Okay, that's why you get a person like Mike Norman, a Republican, who is actually to the left of Bernie Sanders, because he understands our operational reality. He understands the purpose of our socially owned government is the public purpose, the general welfare. There's no arguing with that. Okay, the only way we can't get what we need is if we, ignore the facts. If we, if we are defeatists and we admit defeat and we lay down, because we have the power collectively. I mean, that's disgusting. The only way we do it is kill capitalism. I tell you, the government tomorrow can spend money into existence and buy up all unemployment with a federally guaranteed living wage job for everyone who needs one. We can meet everybody's base needs, raise everybody's standard of living. We could save millions of lives, stop countless suffering, pointless suffering. And you tell me, oh, that's no good. Nah, that's no good. We got to kill capitalism. Is that's borderline sadistic. I mean, you're almost as bad as the Republicans saying that we just want free stuff. I mean, that's horrible. Who cares about capitalism if everybody's base needs are being met in the public sector? If you can get a living wage job in the public sector, who cares about luxury items in the for-profit markets? Okay? That's just ridiculous. They have nothing to do with nothing. It's up to us. We have the power. All the money in the world can't stop the majority. We allow the 1%, we allow the ruling class to maintain their power by maintaining an illusion an illusion that is strengthened by these right-wing neoliberal lies about money, and that were designed to keep us divided. So that's it. That's all I got. This is, insane. I can't believe people can still argue with me after I just got done saying this. It doesn't matter. Let's kill capitalism today. Let's pretend capitalism's dead. Okay. Tomorrow, we're still going to be in the exact same boat. How about that? Our leadership can work for their own private purposes at the expense of society. Okay, like the USSR. It was supposed to be a socialist country. Okay, but yet Stalin, it didn't matter because Stalin worked for his own private purposes at the expense of society. So it doesn't matter what the system is that you're operating under. It doesn't matter how your economy is structured. Okay, the majority always has the power, and democracy, the public purpose is always going to need participation from the majority, the public, to maintain. It's that simple. And if you want people to get their needs met in any society, then the government has to directly spend to meet their needs. Let's see. The government will only spend at the bottom if there is something even bigger in it for the wealthy. That is what happened with FDR. You are not accurately presenting our history. We have to just... What are you talking about? What happened with FDR is they knew if they didn't give in to the New Deal, they would lose it all in a revolution. That's the only reason that the ruling class ever concedes power. Okay? They don't do it out of the goodness of their heart. They knew people were rising up. The labor was occupying the factories. They didn't allow anybody to work. And they were hiring mercenaries to kill and torture people. And the public was growing fast against the capitalist class. Okay, don't forget the whole depression was because of the 1%'s greed as well. So that's it. When the people had enough, they had enough. And the ruling class, the oligarchy, cannot stop us. They cannot stop us. That's just it. Can you imagine 5 million people going and occupying Congress tomorrow? That's not many people out of over 300 million, 5 million people going to occupy Congress. There's not really much they could do. There's not enough police, not enough military. That's more than active duty military. I mean, the whole city would be shut down. The rest of the population, the rest of the country would be united. There's all kinds of ways. Or just imagine the service sectors. Big swaths of sectors just staying home from work because they don't make enough to survive anyway. They have to survive on the black market as it is. I know people right now that have 2 jobs, 2 minimum wage jobs, and they have to sell drugs just to get by. They have to prostitute just to get by. This is not a game. This is not academic exercise. This is fact. I'm trying to educate you people. Like I was educated, because I used to say the same things that that some of you are saying today. But I had the good sense to listen when alternatives were presented, when simple logic proved me wrong. I didn't double down on insanity. I listened. I changed my opinion. I changed my view after I learned operational reality. There's no other way it can be. At some point, I think we should, these cops killing people, especially on... Absolutely, Charles. It's ridiculous. And I just shared it again from my hometown. There was another incident where the cops, had this guy in handcuffs and they were beating his face off the ground. And I really want the district attorney to come on my show and explain his rationale for not charging that cop with attempted murder and not charging the other cop who watched it all happen at all. I want him to come on. And I also want him to talk about, the drug war in general and our justice system in general. Because I just want to ask one of these guys, one of these professional law enforcement people, how they could, with a straight face, think that it's okay to rob, rape, and kill people over evil flowers. How is that in any way a heroic thing, a good thing for society? We criminalize nature and peaceful behavior, So These are, so I would really appreciate, if you go on my page, you'll see the video of the cop doing that, and you'll see I tagged the district attorney, and I'm asking people to message this district attorney to tell him, come on my show. He's an elected official. Explain to Rocco, your rationale. So if you could go send him a message, nicely, respectively, but tell him, he's a public servant and the public wants to know. We want to know his rationale. We want to know his thinking behind some of these things. And I would really appreciate that. Again, change will only come from the up. Emo's doing, we can do that too. We could just go and be defeatist and throw shit in the game and not offer any solutions and be cool and say kill capitalism, or we can actually be real and we can discuss truth and economic fact and real solutions, but there's no other two ways about it. So, all right, guys, take it easy. Oh, that was long. That was too long. What the heck? Now it won't go again, see? Sometimes it just likes me. Unless I see another comment, I'm just getting off now.